What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fandom Power. My name is Wes R. Scott. I'm your host, and I'm joined today once again by the two best co-hosts a nerf herder could ask for. It's Andrew Daw.
I am scruffy today.
And Hank McLaughlin. Hello, gentlemen.
What's going on, boys?
We had a week off, and in that time, we were, I won't say we were struggling for a show idea, but we had the seed planted a couple of weeks ago from one of our viewers who had asked innocently enough if we were going to talk about lightsabers. And
careful what you wish for.
I kind of got my creative juices flowing. I thought, we can talk about lightsabers.
Well, it's funny because at dinner time tonight, my dad, he's like, well, how is it going to be a long show? Isn't there only one? I'm like, no, you better tune in because you're about to learn something.
Oh my God. Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about lightsabers, and not only are we going to talk about lightsabers, we are going to kind of approach this from a chronological aspect. So not only are we going to talk about lightsabers as we've seen them in the films, but we're going to cover some of the stuff from the old expanded universe and how that kind of progressed into the new Disney canon. And towards the end of the show, we are going to do a rundown of every lightsaber variant that is listed in the new canon. Some of those are going to turn up in a couple of different places because certain lightsabers occupy more than one space. And then we're going to talk about, towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about where you can get your very own custom lightsaber, if that's your thing, if you're into those. And maybe where you might like to join some like-minded people in a league. All right, guys, without any further ado, let's talk about lightsabers. Let's, I guess, where do we start? I guess we start back in, 1977, I guess.
All the way back.
Yeah, I mean, here, let me bring this up here. Here we go. So, really,
one.
Well,
Not quite.
As you say, lightsabers have captured the imaginations of not just Star Wars fans, but of pulp culture enthusiasts, for a long time.
Very much so.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea of a lightsaber, it's not really it's not a new idea. I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, everything in Star Wars, or certainly lots of things in Star Wars, are derivative. Mm-hmm. The lightsaber being no different than that.
And they even make fun of it too, right? Like in Last Jedi, where he's like, what'd you think I was going to do? Go down, face the Empire with a laser sword and everything would be good?
Yeah, really. Talk about the history of the lightsaber. I mean, how far do you want to go back? Because, I mean, we can go way, way back. But maybe let's talk about the sort of the literary sense, because isn't the lightsaber just an iteration of the flaming sword?
Could be.
Yeah, I mean,
more laser focused.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely prevalent in literature for sure.
The Archangel Michael
like
there.
The ancient texts, if you will.
Yeah. So I mean, put up a few examples here. I mean, possibly the most well-known might actually be the flaming sword with the cherubim at the Garden of Eden, or maybe the one carried by the Archangel Michael from Christianity. But also, what about Surtur's flaming sword from the Norse Edda? Mm-hmm. And even the, oh my God, I'm going to mess this up. The Clive Sullish, the Sword of Light from Gaelic folklore. These are all examples of the flaming sword that are literally thousands of years old.
Right.
Is the lightsaber not just an iteration of that?
An extension of it.
I would think so.
And yeah, I mean, want to dive into conspiracy theories like aliens did it. Maybe it actually was a lightsaber.
Nah, maybe.
Full circle.
One thing's for sure, though. I mean, fantasy and science fiction, it's been a runaway concept. It's not, again, it's derivative. And I mean, how many instances of an energy weapon have we seen before?
Yeah, no, dozens, really.
Here's a few for you.
Yes.
Thundar.
Let's go with, I'll just run them down here. These are just a few that I was able to find. Just a quick Google search. We have the Photon sword carried by the Black Knight in Marvel Comics. We've got the Covenant energy sword from Halo. How about the Omni Blade from Mass Effect, the video game franchise?
I was always liking the Voltron one.
The blazing sword.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't actually think of blazing sword as being a lightsaber until I realized that it is built out of energy
Yeah.
and then coalesces into this physical thing. So yeah, I mean, another example of the energy blade or the laser sword. Some funnier ones too, like the bread toasting knife from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. By the way, in the new film, they actually use the coveted sound for it to cut the bread. It was kind of funny. Andy, you were quick to remind me of the Schwartz.
Yes. Can't forget the Schwartz.
The Schwartz rings. And I just want to bring this one up. Ulysses 31. I'm not a big fan of Ulysses 31. I'm aware of it. I knew that it was a thing, but I hadn't really watched it. But take a look at Commander Ulysses' energy sword there. Does that not look an awful lot like Ezra Bridger's lightsaber pistol?
Quite a bit.
In fact, that sword is also a pistol. So somebody over at Lucasfilm, whoever worked on Rebels, who came up with that design, is obviously a Ulysses 31 fan. The Sun Sword carried by Thundar the Barbarian.
Yeah,
There are tons and tons and tons of examples of energy-based weapons that really all kind of come out of the flaming sword. But there is only one lightsaber. And thank you, Lucasfilm, for trademarking and all of the legalese that goes with that. But I mean, the first lightsabers that we ever saw, there they are. It's the the Graflex handle, 2 Graflex handles, and the Obi-Wan saber. These are the original 3. Now I can't tell you if these are, screen use props or not, but there are so many third-party aftermarket companies that are making lightsabers now that man, some of them look better than the screen use prop, if you ask me. But back in 1977, these were it. These were the ones that you got to see. That was Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, technically Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, or
Saber.
the Youngling Slayer 3000.
Yeah.
Here, keep this safe. Your dad used it to kill lots of children.
And I think by now, most of us, is there anybody out there who doesn't know history of these things by now, that these were camera flash handles?
Well, we certainly know.
We know.
Yeah.
So the
average
history
viewer still might not know.
the average viewer, that's true. So certainly the Skywalker and the Vader one are the more obvious examples of this. These were flashlight, not flashlight. What am I saying here? They were camera flash
flashes.
handles. And the story goes that the set decorator, Roger Christian, actually went to a camera shop in London when they were making the production, looking for spare parts. And the camera shop, the production was already renting equipment from them anyway. And basically in a box of spare parts were these flash handles. And we got the iconic lightsaber prop out of them.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of reminding everyone how the entire first movie was scratch built.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They used,
After the fact.
They kit bashed model kits to build the Death Star and the Falcon and what have you, right?
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about that? Are you guys fans of Adam Savage from Mythbusters?
Mm-hmm.
You follow
One Day
his
Builds.
YouTube channel? Yeah, so on Tested, Adam actually came out and kind of pulled the veil back on that. There's a piece of I don't even know what model kit it's from. They call it the Universal Greebly. All those little Greeblies, it's that term that they use for all of the little, when you say kit bash, like all the little bumps and knobs and like weird looking mechanical stuff that protrudes from all of the ships and designs. The Universal Greebly, they call it that because it was used so much. It basically is on every starship design in
That universe.
Yeah, in Star Wars. So when Lucasfilm or when ILM went digital, you know that they scanned the Universal Greebly, and they have continued to this day digitally
Using it.
continue to use it in current Star Wars projects. So that's
Nice.
super cool. Nice little
Legacy touch.
yeah. Adam was saying that when they ran out of model kits, they started casting. They saved some and they were casting them in resin. So if they needed to. He said, like, when he was working, because he worked on the prequel trilogy, he's like, they were making like runs of them, like dozens of them at a time out of resin.
Whatever works.
Yeah. So these were the first lightsabers that anybody ever saw. I mean, Andy, you've got.
I do. I've got
You've
not
got
a
one.
Graflex, but we've got a Highland version. And when you strip off the flash reflector attachment, you've got your basic handle.
Yeah, I mean, even if I don't know,
Yeah.
I was going to say if the backing part of that comes off. I mean, you've got what
It can
essentially
with,
looks like.
Screws and whatnot.
Yeah, you get essentially what is your lightsaber emitter.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like in a nutshell, there it is. I mean, that is essentially
What they basically started.
what they got. And oh my God, does it ever work? Do you guys remember your first? I mean, you can't talk about lightsabers without bringing up your own childhood.
True.
Mhm.
Do you guys remember your first lightsaber?
No.
Oh, it's probably a broom, to tell you the truth.
A
There's
broom.
probably 5 minutes before my dad bought me a licensed version of something, but I remember, like, I don't actually remember having it, but I remember seeing photographs of myself very young, maybe 6, 7, like right in that area, with the inflatable yellow one that they had. And
Well, I wanted to talk about that for a second because I should have brought that up sooner. Yeah, so there's Roger Christian as he is as he was then and then now, and of course there is a Graflex camera handle and there's an ad for it there, but as well, and there is an actual screen used Skywalker saber.
beautiful.
But talking about your first lightsaber, and you'd mentioned the first licensed one.
That's it. That's the one.
Do you see that thing?
Man,
That thing is awful. It
yeah,
is so bad.
yeah,
It's literally a cheap flashlight with an inflatable
yeah.
end.
It was not very stiff, and I recall that it didn't hold air very well.
Help Luke and Han battle Darth with your inflatable lightsaber. That is an actual ad from a catalog somewhere.
Well, at least it wouldn't cause too much damage to the other
No,
kid.
no, exactly.
We were talking
And
about that.
The rabbit
Void.
hole that it begins with the yellow color.
Oh my gosh! You know what? I actually
Right?
thought about mentioning that in the notes. I didn't make a note on it, but we can talk about that.
Yeah,
That goes back to that whole the marketing, and when you're given in 1977 and you're given a bunch of black and white drawings and you've got to extrapolate what things are going to be, that the wires sometimes get crossed.
right.
And the toy company just says, run with it. We
Well-
probably had an excess of, yellow inflatable plastic.
I'm going to say this. Kudos to Kenner for being consistent that both the role play lightsaber and Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in the 3 3/4 inch figure were yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So I
true.
mean, at least they were consistent. I mean, you look at even the photo on the package shows Luke Skywalker
with
with
the yellow.
yellow. Yeah,
And I mean, it could have been the quality of the test prints that they put out, or
who knows? Yeah,
because even Marvel, who I can't remember, Louis Simonson, I can't remember exactly, but they were test screened the movie before they put the comic into production. It was really
Sure.
early version.
Yeah.
And pink and yellow lightsabers make it into the comic, the first initial run. Like,
yeah. Putting the notes together for this one, I actually came across an example in the Marvel run where Luke Skywalker's lightsaber is incorrectly colored red.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
that light
yeah.
pink, which is like because the old tech on the sabers, they didn't cast the light that the new ones cast, and so when
No.
the center is washed out by the camera, they look almost white or yellow or pink, a lot
As
less sort
opposed
of
to the
solid than the
blue
modern
or-
ones.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, this is all, you think back to 77, 80, and 83. That was
Yeah.
all done rotoscoping. So, I mean,
Well,
hand
Even
painted.
even this guy looks so blue to me in the room, but on
Yep.
camera it looks whitish blue.
I can see the blue hue around your shirt because you got a black shirt on, but the
Right.
center, the core of that
Looks
Is
absolutely
is so
white.
intensely white. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it's a neat trick of the camera. They even filmed the lightsaber duels with the modern dueling sabers. Now we'll get into
We're
that after.
We're gonna get into that, especially the transition from blue to green. That's a major talking point. But sticking with the whole first lightsaber thing, I mean, how about a vintage 1970s flashlight
Oh, yeah.
or some wrapping paper tubes around Christmas
Cardboard
time?
tube.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, You can't use. I mean, even now, as a 40, almost 50-year-old man, you cannot pick up a wrapping paper tube without giving it a swing, right?
Yep.
No, absolutely. Or a
Anybody within
flashlight at
range is
work.
getting swatted.
Of course they are.
Yeah. I
All
built
right,
one
so-
at a plumbing pipe the other day, or not the other day, but a few months ago. I built one at a plumbing pipe.
I would like to see that.
The DIY market is big right now.
Absolutely. If you're going to cosplay and troop your own, I mean, hey, why not?
It's part of the reason why the old Graflex handles have gone up so much in value.
Oh my God! Thank God for the third-party companies,
Yes.
of which we're going to talk about later on tonight. Because of that, all those old Graflex handles got gobbled up by the collector community, and
Yep.
be lucky if you're a vintage camera collector. Good luck, sir.
Right.
You may not get one.
You probably don't even understand why the market's so screwed.
Yeah, really. So we had essentially a universal weapon in those three lightsabers we saw between 1977 and 1983. And with the exception of just the colors, they were this mysterious kind of thing that we just accepted for what they were because that's all we'd seen.
Mm.
And then the expanded universe came along. And when the EU came along, suddenly we are, overwhelmed with this like deluge of alternate light weapons. I'll call them light weapons, I suppose.
Light based.
And a lot of the ideas that came out of the expanded universe, especially, I mean, looking at this slide, we're looking at the beginning, at the middle image there, the double-bladed lightsaber. Although the handle is much shorter, I mean, arguably that might just be the most famous idea to make it forward into film, and has become a staple of Star Wars ever since, the double-bladed lightsaber. But there's a lot more. We have the light whip. That was introduced in the Marvel Comics back in the 70s, in 77, actually. The crossguard lightsaber. You think that it was new in The Force Awakens? No. Crossguard lightsaber's been around a little bit longer than that. It actually came up in, the Old Republic video game.
Yeah, I believe so.
Then we have the light foil. The light foil, that's a funny one from the role-playing game from the West End games, where nobles, this noble sector of space where essentially it was these like noble houses, and they'd taken to the aristocracy had taken to building these like low-powered lightsabers that they called light foils, and they would have these honorific duels just for the sake of, yeah, they were. It was kind of goofy. There was
a throwback to
lightsaber.
the Macquarie original pointy, the ones like they use in Rebels.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that
the
aesthetic.
much more narrow, slender
Mhm.
blade.
A lightsaber set to stun.
You know, a lot of the stuff that got established, I mean, hats off to the folks over at Dark Horse Comics who really visualized a lot of the stuff that we now accept as being just, everyday Star Wars.
Yeah.
Mm.
Bring your attention to the lower left-hand corner there. That is an ancient lightsaber, the Proto Saber, which functions pretty much like a regular lightsaber, with the exception that it requires an external power source, or at least it did in Legends lore. And interestingly enough, old Hacksmith Industries at Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, has actually made a functioning sort of version of the Proto Saber. Now it runs on, I think, propane, and it's got a very specialized valve system, but essentially there it is, the world's first fully retractable Proto Saber. Now it's not a lightsaber, but it is at least stylistically, it sort of fits the bill, right?
And they had a certain chemical mixture to get the certain light,
Yeah, to get the color.
so to get the proper tone.
Now,
Yeah.
if you go check out their YouTube channel, it's Hacksmith Industries on YouTube.
They're awesome. And it'll Qui-Gon the shit out of a door.
Well, that's what I mean. They go through like a bunch of stuff where they
Yeah.
put this thing to the test, where they start melting stuff with it, and it is like uber satisfying to watch. Yeah.
Not available to the public though yet.
No,
Much
certainly
like
not.
the retractable Disney version.
Yeah. Which apparently is not what it's cracked up to be.
No, apparently not.
Unfortunately. All right, let's talk about the going back to the original trilogy, because one thing that the original trilogy established was that there were only just a few colors. We got blue, red, and then in Return of the Jedi we got green.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Green
kind of goes back
practically being based on the fact that the way they were filming the Jabba the Hutt barge scene, the blue lightsaber was being washed out by the background. It was actually a technical decision. Like there actually exists footage of Luke wielding a blue lightsaber on the barge. If you've ever seen it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, early marketing for Return of the Jedi did show, and dailies when they were filming, they actually started out with a blue lightsaber. But
cover
as
of
you
the novel as
say,
a blue lightsaber.
yeah, I mean, a huge difference when you think about the way that Star Wars was made in what, 76. I mean, it was all on a soundstage. So
Right.
on a soundstage, you could rotoscope the blue in, and it would look just fine against the high contrast, like the black of the Death Star.
Yeah.
But in the, like azure blue skies of Tatooine, your blue blade kind of loses something.
Yeah, completely washes away.
So yeah, we had essentially three colors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the prequels came along, and thank God for the prequels, right? Because we had, I mean, we call it the dark times, where they're just, I mean, if you were not into the comic books or the role-playing game, or any of the novels, it's a big dry spell.
Huge.
For Star Wars content. And then the little thing came along called Attack of the Clones. And one Samuel L. Jackson, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time rather seriously kind of bugged the maker, hey, can I get a purple lightsaber? And eventually they kind of said, okay. Kind of funny, because we knew that the big battle at Geonosis was, or they knew that the battle at Geonosis was going to happen, and Sam Jackson didn't want to be lost in a crowd.
Right.
Hence, you got a purple lightsaber. And isn't that interesting, though? Because now we've got here's the thing. Now we got to come up with a reason. How does this work?
The why.
Right.
And we're talking, it's the 90s. Lucas hasn't sold the farm yet. So we're still running on EU rules, which, remember, that was the canon up until what, 2014?
Roughly,
Yeah. Well, this is actually one of the aspects of the old legends and the new canon that actually remains fairly consistent across the board, that hasn't really changed a lot. And that really is sort of the inner workings or the components of a lightsaber, really. They're, they're made of a few things. We have an exploded view here on the screen if you're watching the video version of the show right now, which consists of, a few parts, essentially your hand grip, the pommel, the focusing ring, the main hilt, the blade emitter, and with some sort of energy core. In Legends, that would have been a power cell, but they've changed that now. And then we have the addition of a crystal, or crystals, depending on which side of the lore we're talking about. And that's actually going to sort of occupy a lot of the discussion here as we go forward, because those pesky crystals. All right. So with the expanded universe, and I mean, the expanded universe was doing this long before the prequels came out. Like, you had virtually every color of the rainbow. But, they did pretty good at sort of, visualizing things in the existing colors, the colors that we had seen.
Red for your Sith.
Exactly. And then, things like, Knights of the Old Republic came along, and suddenly, while they kind of, saved the visual of the lightsaber to be fairly consistent with what we had seen on the films, they took the idea of lightsaber crystals and they really ran with it, adding something like, what is it? I think it's 15 there, 15 enhancing crystals that not only enhanced the lightsaber itself, but it also enhanced the user based on sort of their disposition within the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Our first comment from Facebook coming in tonight. Unknown Facebook user says, favorite lightsaber of all time, Count Dooku.
Yeah, it's a sexy one.
I do like Dooku's lightsaber. Actually, we've got a slide for Count Dooku's lightsaber actually coming up here in the near future. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. 15 crystals. Oddly enough, the crate dragon pearl that we got to see finally in what was
Mandalorian.
that? In Mandalorian was actually could be used in a lightsaber to enhance it.
You have to chip it down a bit.
Well, I was going to say, Mandalorian went, kind of blew the doors open on that. Apparently, they're a lot bigger than what I thought they were.
Yeah, you just get a whole bunch of them out of one.
A lot of the names that you're seeing on screen here, if you're watching right now, like Bondar and Solari, Fond, and some of the other names, those names are recycled and they show up later on in the new canon. There's a very interesting relation between the expanded universe crystals and the new crystals, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But as I was saying, there are 15 crystals essentially that got introduced through those 2 video games. But man, that's nothing. Did either of you guys play the Old Republic, the MMO?
Yes.
I mean, they took that to a whole new level because there's something in the neighborhood of 117 variations of lightsaber crystals across several hues of colors, and they all had different properties, like way more than I could even think about getting into. But
a little bit,
117 varieties of crystal. That's ludicrous levels.
Yeah. I mean, now in the modern, non licensed sabers, if you will, you're talking 16 million colors.
Mm-hmm.
The RGB boards.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about crystals specifically, because, before 1992, there were no mention of crystals in connection. Connected to lightsabers at all.
No, you're right.
Another Facebook comment. I want a Jedi with a red lightsaber. Bad guys don't own the color red. Well, that's an interesting point that you make, because we're going to talk about that right about now. So no crystals before 1992. And it was only until the Dark Horse comic series, Dark Empire, where the name Adagan crystals are mentioned in an end note. And they are mentioned as being found in the Ilum system. Again, another recycled name. Then in 1994, the Tales of the Jedi comic from Dark Horse reference the planet Adaga. And Adaga would become the default world where Jedi would get their lightsaber crystals until they discovered the planet Ilum. Well, in 1996, the radio drama of Return of the Jedi retroactively made Adagan crystals a part of the lightsaber when Brian Daley expanded one of Return of the Jedi's deleted scenes that depicted Luke constructing his new green lightsaber. And that's a really interesting part, because that lightsaber crystal is synthetic. At least in the old lore, it's synthetic. Essentially, he made it in essentially a little oven. And so, Facebook user, about red crystals. In the old lore, Sith lightsaber crystals were synthetic.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, they were considered synthetic, and they were more powerful. They made a stronger lightsaber blade than a Jedi's lightsaber. Yeah.
I heard a fun fan theory this week about Luke's green saber.
I did as well.
The origin of his crystal.
Yeah, go for it.
It actually makes a lot of sense if it is.
I kind of like it, actually.
It is. Because he's on Tatooine building a saber. And
it's a good way to reconcile.
Yeah, you're not going to find too many crystals on Tatooine, but you might find a certain one in the possession of Ben Kenobi's old stuff.
Absolutely.
And it turns out this fan theory says that maybe it's the same crystal from Qui-Gon Jinn's saber.
That Obi-Wan may have collected Qui-Gon's saber and
held onto it, yeah.
Which is a far cry from the Legends explanation, where when he's camping out at Ben's place in Shadows of the Empire, he actually makes a point of saying, like, as he's making the new lightsaber, that he should let R2-D2 test it, because there's every chance that it will explode. But then he's like, he couldn't fathom anything happening to R2, so he does it himself. But yeah,
that's right.
What's cool is, like, with lightsaber crystals being synthetic, or that you can make your own lightsaber crystal, that changes, what we know about Darksiders, in that a Jedi very well could have a red lightsaber, that it's just a color. Yeah. So, synthetic crystals, also known as a synth crystal, they could be made in this oven, actually called a geological compressor. Kind of like, when you put enough pressure on coal, you can get a diamond. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
same thing. And crystals could be made anywhere from 1 to 4 days. Now, the Sith discovered that synthetic crystals could be modified by the dark side and made for stronger lightsaber blades. And because of the creation process, most synth crystals were red, but they could be made any color through the creation process or by manipulating them with the Force. And again, that's cool because in Legends, it means that red sabers are not exclusively the domain of a Darksider. And in Legends, it's heavily implied that Asajj Ventress, Mace Windu, and Darth Vader's lightsabers are made with synth crystals. So there you go, Adigan crystals. It's kind of cool because we get this whole Ilum goes all the way back. It's a very old name that just keeps coming back and gets recycled. Unfortunately, it doesn't fare very well in the new canon. But that brings us to sort of like that's essentially how lightsaber crystals worked in Legends, or in the old lore, as it were. Which brings us into the new lore. And before we can get to the modern Kyber crystal, we got to take a look at the word origin of that. And I know it seems kind of pedantic and silly, but I mean, you have to look at it in order to understand how these leaps were made.
The next link in the chain.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the modern lore talks about the Kyber crystals. If you've never heard the term Kyber crystal before, maybe go back and have a look at Rogue One, because it's talked about quite heavily. Or you can go back and you can read the 1977 novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and you can get another explanation of what the Kyber crystal is. Or we can go all the way back to 1975, where in a story outline for one of the earliest script drafts for Star Wars, this one comes from the 1975 synopsis and typed outline from The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, Episode 1, The Star Wars. There's a quote from Ben Kenobi who says, quote, "The Force is all around us. It can be collected and transmitted through the use of a Kyber crystal. It's the only way to amplify the power of the Force within you." Interesting that that far back in 1975 that George Lucas was playing around with the idea that this crystal was the MacGuffin.
Right.
And only through it, with this crystal, you could use the Force, that you needed it to do that.
Well, that kind of makes what they did with Visions last year.
Absolutely.
That much more when the one guy grafted it right to his suit.
Yeah, very much so. Facebook comment says, my favorite of the early novels, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, was great. There's that's a contentious opinion to have. I share that opinion. I think it's a good book. You have to read that book through the lens of, in 1977, nobody knew that Star Wars was going to be this huge international hit that it was. And so you get a book that is written from the perspective, there is no more Star Wars. This is the only sequel you're going to get. And the relationships are much different. There's a semi-romantic relationship between Luke and Leia, or at least the seeds are planted. Like, they really do some zany stuff in this one. Leia hacks Vader's arm off. Yeah, it's really cool. It's totally worth reading, I would say.
Yeah, it's really good. And the 3 early Han Solo novels that came out, same.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun too.
A lot of fun, yeah.
Well, anyway, the idea of needing a crystal to use the Force was obviously ultimately abandoned, and the Force was something that came from midichlorians. It's all around us. It penetrates us, binds the universe together. All right, in 1977, in Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the notion of the Kyber crystal got revisited. We changed the spelling this time from Kiber to Kaiburr. And now the Kyber crystal, it's a one-off, becomes this like immensely powerful Force relic capable of magnifying Force users' abilities by like 1,000 times. Coincidentally, Splinter of the Mind's Eye is the first use of Force healing in Star Wars media. One hitch, though, to the Kyber crystal is that it only works on that planet in proximity to this ancient temple. The temple of Pomojima on the planet Sarkarpus 5, known locally to the locals as Mimban. And there's another name that got recycled. We saw that in Star Wars Solo, a Star Wars story.
Mm.
That's the planet where Han was fighting as part of the Imperial Army on Mimban.
Where he meets Chewbacca.
Yeah. Right. So if you took the Kyber crystal away from the temple, it started to lose power. And if you took it off world, it would cease to function altogether. At some point, there was a reconciliation there where there was a fragment of the Kyber crystal, almost like the crystal shard, kind of in the vein of the dark crystal.
Mm-hmm.
That fragment apparently could be used as a lightsaber focusing crystal as well.
All right. Like that concept has been abandoned either. Like a lot of people have recycled that concept. Like,
oh yeah,
even in Marvel Comics, if you take the Infinity Gauntlet out of its own universe, it's useless.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And that kind of brings us to the modern sort of iteration of Kyber crystals. And Kyber crystals and Adagan crystals, they kind of blur together. Like there's some elements of the two that are synonymous, but then there's other things about them that are like very, very different.
There's another name for a crystal, and I can't recall it off the top of my head, but I remember in Legends there were robots, Jedi temple robots that were powered by this crystal, and it made the robots force sensitive. Do you guys recall that?
I don't remember that one.
I gotta throw up that link.
Now I'm gonna have to find that.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why R2.
In Legends,
Yeah,
some
really.
of them even made it through to the like Return of the Jedi era and fought with the rebellion at Endor. And
Right.
I gotta throw that up. But that was part of my idea for my thinking that maybe R2 is actually force sensitive.
Force sensitive, yeah.
And if these crystals could power those robots, why couldn't this crystal have powered R2 kind of
I suppose, yeah.
But there's even that Legends
rusty innards.
Right.
That's one of the, and there's one of the big differences, right?
R5D4 being force sensitive.
There you go. Yeah. They make a point of distinguishing that the EU Adagan crystal they say is force reactive,
Right.
whereas the current canon Kyber crystal is like they're semi-intelligent and considered to be alive. That they are both made of organic and inorganic material at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, they're really, really weird that way.
Multifunctional.
Yeah. So a Kyber crystal or Kyber crystals are considered to have a collective consciousness. Facebook user. Yeah, the crystals kind of had sentience in Legends.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They know what's up.
Yeah, and here's the other thing where they say like an Adagan crystal, the old EU Adagan crystals were force reactive. The thing with a Kyber crystals are inherently attuned to the light side of the force, and they are nearly indestructible, which makes them very attractive to people like the Empire when they're, building a super weapon.
A Death Star laser.
Kyber crystals are first canonized into the new canon in 2012. It was episode 6 of the 5th season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. That one is The Gathering, and it aired on November 3rd, 2012. Kyber crystals are found in several systems throughout the galaxy, including the Adiga system. A nice little nod of bringing that stuff forward. Another case of like, hey, we'll just pick and choose what we want from the old lore and bring it forward. But I thought that was a nice little connective piece to keep the two together. And apparently Adiga was seen in a Force vision by Rey in The Force Awakens. But where? I couldn't tell you. But Kyber crystals were also found in places like Jeddah, particularly the Temple of the Wills in Jeddah City, and on the planet Ilum, making its return once again. Of course, in the case of Jeddah, the Empire seized most of the crystal deposits from the Kyber Temple there to power the super laser for the first Death Star. And that gets a little tricky because it gets into like the scientific thing about Kyber crystals where, Galen Erso and his project about using them as a basically a limitless power source got kind of corrupted, and his
Mhm.
ideas got co-opted into the mega laser. But speaking of Ilum, Ilum was the main repository for Jedi lightsaber crystals for like 10,000 years. And then the Empire came along and that all changed, because that planet, if you thought Jeddah got the short end of it when they stole all the crystals from the temple, that's nothing compared to what they did to Ilum. In Ilum, it's heavily implied, if not on the nose,
Yes.
was basically converted into Starkiller Base, that they literally used the crystal deposits of
Within the
Ilum,
planet
yeah,
itself.
to power the super weapon. Horrible experience. And you get to see the sort of the transition of that, because we get an episode, the Clone Wars episode, where Ahsoka takes the Jedi younglings there, where they go to get their first lightsaber crystals. And then we get to visit the planet again in Jedi Fallen Order, and we see like, oh my God, they are literally like mining the crap out of it. You start to see the formation of the trench. And then, of course, the final result is what we see in The Force Awakens in Starkiller Base. So one of the big differences about between Adagan crystals and Kyber crystals, an Adagan crystal would be the lightsaber blade color would have been determined by the crystal color. Not so in the case of Kyber crystals. Naturally occurring Kyber crystals are colorless, as was the case of Jyn Erso's Kyber pendant that her mother gave to her.
Mhm.
There's an inscription on that pendant. It says, "Trust in the Force." Well, so here's where we get into the weeds a little bit on sort of saber colors, and it's that a lightsaber, a Kyber crystal, they have a resonant. I don't want to say it's a resonant frequency. This is where we get into sort of the mumbo jumbo of the Force and how Jedi's kind of do things. But the Jedi could hear the crystals. They would say that the crystals would sing to them, and that's how they knew that the crystal was intended for them. And it's only through that bond where not only does the Jedi accept the crystal, but the crystal accepts the Jedi, that the crystal takes on its color based on the personality of the Jedi.
It kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah,
Whenever you get, like, say, a normal crystal and you hold it up the sun, you know the rainbow is in there.
That's right.
The entire rainbow's there, so whatever comes out could be just a reflection of
it is.
the
Yeah,
user.
it's absolutely a reflection of the person who it's bonding to.
The will of the Force.
Yes. It just so happens that most of them turned either blue or green.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is where we start to reconcile some of that other weird stuff that's happened before. We do have other colors that must have been a reflection of their creators, like Mace Windu's purple lightsaber, like the yellow lightsabers of the Temple Guards, the black blade of the Darksaber, and even Ahsoka Tano's white lightsabers. That's a bit of a special case.
That one, yeah. It's never implicit either that the Darksaber has a crystal. It could be some other tech.
I guess so. It's funny though, because the Darksaber comes up in our breakdown of the saber types as being a broad saber. So I just presumed that it had at least one.
Well, it would make sense.
Yeah.
It's of all the sabers, it's the one that's I kind of want to know the most about moving forward.
I know,
and
we know
get that.
so little about it right now.
Yeah, so little.
Yeah,
and yet we know who made it, where it was made, how old it is, and compared to other sabers, we just don't even have that info. So.
Facebook comment says, "LOL," just like hippies who tell people they have a yellow aura or a blue aura or whatever.
It's like a mood ring.
That's right. Yeah.
Mood
Nice.
sabers.
All right. So yeah, we get some of the other colors now. But here's the problem with this. So this is where, like, you do something, because Star Wars is very much a visual medium. And this is where I kind of laugh, because they make a point of like, oh, it's based on the user and it's based on their personality. Well, when you do something visually and you forget your own lore and suddenly you've written yourself into a corner, you've got to find a way to reconcile with it. And this is one of those cases where it was like, because even though the Kyber crystals are bonded to their owners, a Jedi can still tweak the color by themselves by changing the frequency of the crystals. Hence, you have Anakin Skywalker, who literally took Ahsoka's lightsabers and turned them from green to blue.
Right.
They're not new lightsabers. They're her existing sabers tweaked.
I always really kind of like the idea that just in his presence, because he is the most powerful Force user, you kind of get the impression like anybody's lightsaber would turn his color blue in his possession for
with him.
Sort of extended period of time, especially if he put the love and energy that he would put into Ahsoka's and caring for them and tuning them. And
that's an interesting thought.
Tinkering with them.
So this is where and this was the question I was sort of asked myself earlier today, and I'm going to ask you guys, and for everyone who's watching and listening, if a Jedi can still, tune, and this case is very specific. This is another Jedi, Anakin Skywalker, taking a pair of lightsabers that are clearly green and turning them blue. Did the crystals change color or just the blades? Because if the crystals changed colors, then they're not Ahsoka's crystals anymore. They're Anakin's. It's just, it's this weird, how do you reconcile that?
She doesn't wield these blades long enough before she loses them to sort of.
That's what I mean.
Like
you don't really know. Yeah.
It would be neat to see in a video game, especially a game, they're redoing the Knights of the Old Republic series, apparently.
Yeah, that would be
nice
an interesting one.
Because there are characters that change in the Force, would it be neat to see the blades change, like, if Luke became aggressive on the second Death Star as he was dueling Vader, and
would they start turning red?
Start turning red in the middle of that fight. I mean, that's a strong indicator that you're leaning too close. I mean, that wouldn't turn me off at all. That'd be kind of a neat sort of
right.
Kind of dipped into that in that Visions though.
In Visions.
When all those imposter Jedi showed up, and then
they did. Yeah, they did do that.
All
didn't
went
they?
red.
Although you know what,
except that actually, the one guy who turned back.
That does speak to the established lore, though. Even though Visions was a standalone, not a canon. Yeah,
right.
The idea that they were all colorless, like he's just forging them, putting them in there, and then the wielders, bonded to them in that instance,
and it affects it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That would be interesting to flesh out in a canonical.
If they do a season 2 of Visions, that'd be nice to keep going.
Yeah. I'd be down for that. All right. Well, that brings us back to the, what about all the Darksiders? How does it work for them? Well, yeah. So where is it here?
You've heard me say it a million times. Read the comics, kids.
Yeah. As we mentioned before, Kyber crystals are inherently attuned to the light side of the Force. And because of that, they naturally resist any attempt from a Darksider to be used in a lightsaber. Now, to do this, the Darksider basically has to undergo what is basically a sort of mental battle where they must pour in all of their negative emotions. Remember that little thing that Yoda said? Hate leads to fear, leads to suffering. All those emotions get poured into the crystal, and only when the Darksider has completely dominated the crystal, it actually damages the organic parts of the crystal, causing them to bleed, and they turn red. And only then, once they've been bled, can they be used in a Darksider's
Palpatine lightsaber. Literally calls it bleeding the crystal.
Yeah. In this case, in the slide that we're looking at right now, Darth Vader's first lightsaber was actually a green crystal belonging to the Jedi Master Kirak Infila. This crystal resisted Vader by subjecting him to intense visions that nearly drove him insane. Talk about, wow, get your work cut out for you. All right. And then we get, so now the other big one is, what about Kylo Ren's unstable lightsaber? Because that's a special case too, isn't it?
Right.
We learn that during the process of bleeding his own crystal, because that is the crystal from Ben Solo's blue lightsaber. But in the bleeding process, Kylo Ren actually cracks the crystal. And so in order to compensate that, when you crack a lightsaber crystal, it becomes very dangerous because the amount of energy that it is now releasing is like exponentially more than a faceted crystal.
A little less elegant.
Yeah, so that's why we ended up adding the vents on the side of Ben Solo's lightsaber to make Kylo Ren's crossguard lightsaber. Yeah, so it's a pretty special case, which kind of takes me to the next point, because now we've got crystals can be broken, but they can also be healed. And we have a couple of cases where this has happened. I mean, the big one, probably the most memorable one, is Ahsoka Tano. She actually fought an Inquisitor. No lightsaber at all, by the way, because remember, she left her sabers at the crash site when her Star Destroyer went down. Vader recovered them, and so she's without weapons when the Inquisitorius show up looking for her. Now she fights this guy. Who is this guy? This is the sixth brother. Yeah, so she fights the sixth brother. By the way, she could hear the sixth brother's lightsaber crystals singing to her. So she, through the Force, actually unseated the crystals from the lightsaber, causing it to explode, killing the sixth brother.
See, I have some headcanon here.
Yeah.
Vader is in possession of her lightsabers. It's not a huge stretch to say that he bleeds those crystals. And then perhaps those crystals go into the sabers that are. So maybe she's actually
to
the Inquisitorius. Well, that's an interesting thought.
And so maybe she's healing her own crystals. Yeah.
Isn't that something, though?
Wouldn't that be cool, man?
That is definitely an interesting thought. So those lightsabers that she made use the healed crystals from the sixth brother's spinning lightsaber. But there's another example. In the Force tug of war between Rey and Kylo Ren, when they actually snap the Skywalker lightsaber, that also cracked the lightsaber crystal. And so Rey ends up using a Force technique that she learned. Turns out Rey actually did read some of the ancient Jedi texts before she stuffed them in that drawer in the Millennium Falcon. This one is the Chronicles of Bruce Boo, where she learned a technique to heal the crystal. Hence, she was able to repair the Skywalker saber.
Nice.
All right. That takes us through the... what do we got here?
A new comment.
New comment coming in here. This one says, one Star Wars character I liked a lot was General Grievous, precisely because he's using lightsabers from various Jedi of multiple colors with different crystals. True story. I mean, what other way? There's no other way to say that. Absolutely. In fact, I would say Grievous... Man, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. Grievous was never more terrifying than he was in the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars shorts, where he was a terrifying, literally those Jedi and Ki-Adi-Mundi was there. They were quaking in their boots when he showed up at the Battle of Coruscant. All right, that kind of brings us sort of full circle here to how lightsabers work and how crystals work. Man, I put together a list, and this is kind of weird because I think some of these are redundant, but I've put them all together anyway. We're going to take a run through every lightsaber variant that appears in the current canon that is listed in the Wikipedia, which is sort of the open source reference guide for all things Star Wars. So you can take that with a grain of salt, but everything that they thought required a separate entry, I've put it in here, and I've got an example for each one. So let's take a run through those. All right, here they are. There's like 17 of them, I think there is. 1, 2, 3. The Sith lightsaber, the double-bladed lightsaber with its 5 variants. The dual phase, broad saber, great lightsaber, crossguard lightsaber, and on and on and on, which we're going to go through in a little bit more detail right now. Yeah, right.
Who knows what they'll come up with later?
Yeah, some of these are going to show up in multiple categories, by the way. All right, it seems like for every variety of sword in our own history that there would be some lightsaber variant, and like I said before, some of them are going to fall into multiple categories. So let's take a run through those. All right, here they are. There's like 7 what 17 of them, I think there is. 1, 2, 3. The Sith lightsaber, the double-bladed lightsaber with its 1, 2, 3. 5 variants. So right off the hitch, just kind of where we left off here with the bled crystals, we've got your Sith lightsaber or your Darksider lightsaber. Of course, some popular examples would be Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, and of course, Darth Tyrannus.
AKA Count Dooku.
Sith lightsabers or Darksider lightsabers, they are constructed by using similar methods and materials to a Jedi's lightsaber. But again, as Sith cannot bond to their crystals, they must be bled in order to complete the process. But otherwise, they now function exactly the same as a Jedi's lightsaber, unlike the EU, which said that they were stronger. That's not the case anymore.
They just have hate flowing through them.
They do. They do. All right, the double-bladed lightsaber. Who can forget that one?
Yep.
Probably the biggest, like, ooh, in new Star Wars. The double-bladed lightsaber. This is a lightsaber. So this is where it gets we get into the weeds a little bit, because the true double-bladed lightsaber is not just two lightsabers stuck together. It is a purpose-built lightsaber with two emitters.
Mm-hmm.
So an emitter on each end. It just so happened that Darth Maul's continued to function after it was cut in half, but it was not designed to be used as two separate weapons.
No.
It was one weapon.
More of a lightsaber bow staff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the double-bladed lightsaber. We got Darth Maul uses one. We've got Asajj Ventress, who uses a specialized version of the double-bladed saber, and then Maul's brother, Savage Opress. And that takes us into some of the variants, because of all of the variants, it is the double-bladed that has the most. We'll start with the hinged double-bladed. And I had forgotten that we had seen this before the movies, that the sequence with Dark Ray,
Mm-hmm.
we saw Dark Ray unfold one. Well, General Pong Krell in the Clone Wars carried a pair of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The double-bladed lightsaber collapsed in half for easier storage, but practically speaking, both blades could be activated while the lightsaber was folded and used to trap the blade of another lightsaber. Also, some of the Jedi Temple Guard lightsaber pikes are also hinged. That brings us to the spinning double-bladed lightsaber. Now, this is unique, that only the Inquisitorius are known to use these. So that's that goes back to what you were saying before, Hank, about headcanon. Like, where are these things coming from? Like,
Right.
And why do the Inquisitorius all build the same design? Is that by order, or like, are these manufactured and just given to them? Now, put your crystals in them.
I
don't know.
tend to think that, especially in light of all those lightsabers lining their throne room, if you will.
Yeah. Well, certainly there'd be no shortage of crystals for them to choose from.
Right.
I mean, here we have, and there are some variation here. I mean, if you look at the difference between the Grand Inquisitor, the third sister, and the fifth brother, there are some subtle differences.
Little minor tweaks.
Like, of the three of those, Rivas were actually designed to work as a split saber, to actually they are two lightsabers put together, but also with the spinning track of the spinning lightsaber. The spinning lightsaber is a lightsaber that could be used single-bladed. In this configuration, it resembles a sword with a basket hilt. But the basket could unfold into a ring where the two emitters would then spin on a circular track. Inquisitor lightsabers also used micro-repulsor lifts that allowed the Inquisitors to fly, but they had to use the Force to navigate. And there is the answer that I think I don't know if I'd read that before I made the notes.
I've never heard that before. That's cool.
Yeah. This technique was often used to escape. That is kind of how we see them do it too, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Taking a page out of the Penguins book.
Yeah. We get to what they call the split saber, and this is the thing. Like, a lot of people, not to confuse the Maul thing again, but this is where two single-handed lightsabers are designed to be joined together specifically into a double-bladed lightsaber, and that's where Asajj Ventress, for the third time shows up, as well as other Jedi like Cal Kestis, whose split saber is a combination of his own, his Padawan blade, and his master's lightsaber.
Now, the build your own lightsaber kits that were on sale a while ago.
The blade builders from Hasbro, yeah.
Came with a lot of those where you could
join them together. Yeah. You could do all kinds of crazy designs. We're going to see some more. There's some really wonky ones. A lot of these, not a lot. There are a few examples that we're going to talk about that, while canonized, they come from like a role-playing supplement where we haven't seen a character on screen or in a novel or in a comic book use them. So some of the artwork that I had to use had to go back into Legends just because there's no other artwork to support it. Not the case, though, with the lightsaber pike. The lightsaber pike is interesting because it's actually gone through some of the biggest changes from the EU to the new canon, where it's essentially a double-bladed lightsaber where the handle is considerably longer. And these were sort of the exclusive domain of the Jedi Temple Guardian. Now, back in the EU, they actually talk about it too in canon, that some of the handles or the hafts are exceptionally long, to the point where the lightsaber now functions more like a spear than a sword. And then some of them, they put a small Shoto blade on the end, like a little pokey thing on the back end.
Right. Luke Skywalker's third lightsaber, most people don't know, before he built his green one.
Yeah.
He in a Jedi temple, he encountered a Jedi temple guard's lightsaber and took it for his own, and battled basically the Sith version of the Fourth Ghost.
Oh wow!
Which was the Grand Inquisitor, and summarily.
Oh really?
Him. And so Luke was running around with a yellow lightsaber for a period of time between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Oh wow, that's super cool. All right, the next one on our list. This is the dual phase lightsaber. Now, this has been again, this was back in the old expanded universe, and it has now been carried forward into canon. Now, Hank, I'm going to rely on your expertise. Is there a reference for this? They say the comic books, but Darth Vader's lightsaber is said to be a dual phase lightsaber, and a dual phase lightsaber is one that can be adjusted on the fly,
right,
to become twice as long or even shorter.
It's not.
Do we see him do this in the comic books?
Not explicitly, but I mean,
No.
And it could be a variation of artists and stuff.
Yeah.
I always thought that his blade was longer in Return of the Jedi than the other two movies.
That may be
just my thought, and I had read that in EU stuff before that. The length of the blades were adjustable.
Yeah, adjustable to catch your opponent off guard.
Mm-hmm. And
I love the idea of that.
And I'd also read that there was a version of the adjustable blade that worked like you could turn it off and turn it on, like it would pulse. Yeah. And that both Jedi and Sith now we're going back like 10,000 years, had banned the use of this style of saber because the Jedi didn't think it was honorable, and the Sith didn't want to be like caught cheating. So, and often it could literally be used for that, where Kylo Ren kills that Praetorian guard with it, where he holds it up and just ignites it. Right. It would be like that, like slip a move, turn the blade off in mid swing and turn it back on, so it was a lot like cheating. But the blades were designed to do that at critical points. So
interesting.
Maybe similar to the dual phase blades.
Maybe. Here's another one. This is another one that there's a listing for it, but I don't know of an on-screen reference for it, and that is the great. Oh, sorry, I've skipped over one. We're going to the broad saber now. Sorry, the broad saber. This is exactly what you think it is. It's essentially a lightsaber broadsword. So instead of having a cone-shaped blade, it is a much flatter, wider blade. And of course, the biggest example I can come up with is Tar Vizsla's dark saber as a variation of a broad saber.
And Lucas had always written the sabers to be heavy broadsword weapons. That's why they were wielded the way they were in A New Hope.
I don't know what the advantage is to doing this, like to have a weapon like this, other than for Because I mean, the way that they work now, I guess the whole weighted thing, we kind of got a bit of an explanation in that with Din Djarin and his struggling to wield or to control the power.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it does make sense from that perspective.
Hmm.
I wonder if he would have the
lesson
same
for Sabine too, right? Like,
would they have had the same? Yeah, would they have had the same struggle? Were it a traditional like cone shaped regular lightsaber?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Sabine she uses Ezra's lightsaber a couple of times
Without any issue.
Without any issue.
Yeah. So maybe it's unique to the broad saber style or the broad
Perhaps.
saber models.
Because you figure, like in Force Awakens, Finn picks up the saber, no problem,
Absolutely.
and you know, tries his best.
Well, yeah, he does. All right. So here, this is what I was saying. There's no, I couldn't find it on screen or a comic book use of this, but the great lightsaber. Now, these are lightsabers that are just, they function exactly as a regular lightsaber, but they are made for the large creatures of the Star Wars galaxy. In this case, here I coughed up a picture of a Herglick standing beside a humanoid. So give you an idea. I mean, that lady is roughly human-sized.
Well, you got to think, you know, Yoda's saber is the reverse of that, right?
Yes,
So
it is.
It makes perfect sense that they could go the opposite direction.
Yeah. So the great saber, long lightsabers made for large creatures. All right, next up on the list, the old crossguard lightsaber. We already talked about the Kylo Ren variant, which, by the way, is based on an ancient design. Only the what do you call these? They are called oh my lord, they are quillins, like the sword piece, the crossguard. Each side of the crossguard is called a quillin. We get our first High Republic character here, Stellan Gios. He's a user of a crossguard lightsaber, where he has got a physical crossguard that is spanned by two little energy quillins. The purpose remains the same. It's to protect the user's hands, but at the same time also makes it that much more dangerous to the user.
Ezra Bridger finds one on Moraband in that.
That's right.
Aftermath of that, it only has enough power to sort of turn on and then turn back off.
Yeah. All right, and then we get back to some of the other ones. Again, things we've already seen before. Talk about it, the curved hilt lightsaber. This is the going back to the Count Dooku comment. Count Dooku obviously was a user of this style. He gifted a pair of them to Asajj Ventress. Those, of course, were her split saber that she could put together. And Ahsoka Tano's current lightsabers, her white sabers, are built with curved hilts. The idea that the curved hilt would offer a lightsaber duelist a more precise slash and lunge, and they were popular among users of Form 2. That's Makashi, which is a straight-up lightsaber to lightsaber combat style. It is pure sword fighting. So the curved handle, apparently it was a preferred model. Yeah. This next one's kind of cool because it adds a little bit of real world practicality to a weapon. We've seen it before in movies. It's the cane saber. You know, what's the Blind Fury with the cane sword?
That's right.
With, was it Rutger Hauer? I think it was. We get a couple of examples of this. Jedi Master Tara Sinube used a cane lightsaber. And Maul's third lightsaber was a cane saber. Did you get a figure down?
Oh, yeah, figure down. We'll sort it out after.
The Force is awakened.
Might have been Cara Dune.
Oh, no. Yeah, essentially the cane saber is a lightsaber that's incorporated into a functional walking stick.
Awesome.
All right, the next one. This one's kind of cool because I don't know about you guys, but when you think of a training lightsaber, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Wood. Nice wooden sword, can't really cut through much.
Well, I, like many people, always thought of a training lightsaber as being this underpowered, you know, like you wouldn't give a lethal weapon to a toddler, would you?
Right.
You would hope not.
Turns out the Jedi would. Training lightsabers, you know, contrary to popular belief, are not underpowered. They are full-powered lethal weapons that actually use a much more intense electromagnetic containment field that makes them harder to penetrate. The trade-off is that instead of taking off arms and killing people, you would receive welts and minor burns instead. But they are fully powered lightsabers. Isn't that something?
Deep end.
Absolutely. Oh, dead Padawans. Very funny.
Obviously not that powerful.
I don't know. You get the right kid in there and knows how to tweak it.
All right. Another popular one. This one was really popular in Legends is the Shoto lightsaber. Yoda is said to have used a Shoto lightsaber, which to me doesn't necessarily really align with the definition of the Shoto, that it's a shorter blade, because he's just a small dude, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's just a lightsaber that's like scaled to him.
Perfect. Yeah.
Now, Ahsoka Tano's offhand, on the other hand, that's a true Shoto, which is a shorter blade that's usually wielded as an offhand weapon.
Yoda's always reminded me of a mini Graflex.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Well, there's a variation of the Shoto, and this one goes back again to Legends. It's the Guard Shoto, or the Tonfa lightsaber. That is an image of Maris Brood. She was a character from the Force Unleashed games and novels, but she used a pair of Guard Shotos. All right, and that brings us down to some of our most, can we call them exotic, I guess?
Yes.
How about the Light Whip? The Light Whip, these were popularized by the Night Sisters of Dathomir. And this character, this is Vernestra Rawo. She's a new character from the High Republic. The Light Whip being a highly specialized and modified lightsaber that uses a flexible containment shield that allows the blade, or blades, plural, to flex. Because of this characteristic, each blade has less cutting power than a traditional lightsaber. It's kind of an interesting thing. According to the book, Vernestra actually built hers based on a Force vision and didn't tell anybody about it until she learned how to use it. That's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't want to show it off until you know what you're doing.
Also, she's one of the youngest Jedi Knights ever to be granted knighthood in like a long time, at the age of like 15 or something.
Yeah,
15 or 16. Yeah. All right, and that brings us to one of the more cooler ones. This goes back to our Ulysses 31 comment here. Ezra Bridger's lightsaber blaster hybrid. Now, I don't know of another canonical example of this one, but man, I like that design.
It's my favorite. I just Rebel Sabers has one. It's so beautiful right now. It's like $560.
Really?
I want it really bad. Really bad. Not $560 bad, but I really.
This one combines the elements of a traditional blaster weapon and a lightsaber.
Wants it more.
I love that. All right. If you think that's cool, then we get into we're going into batshit level here at this point when we get to the lightsaber rifle. Everybody remember Jedi librarian Joe Castanew?
Sure do.
Joe Castanew, after Order 66, went back to the Jedi Temple where she had an encounter with Darth Vader. She took her own lightsaber and jammed it into this specialized rifle weapon that is literally power. You can see in the top of that rifle, her lightsaber is actually powering the rifle. The lightsaber rifle. Now, I don't know if there's another example of this in Star Wars lore. I think this might actually be the only one.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's like basically an extension off the Ezra Bridger sort of idea.
Yeah, maybe.
And she, Vader does kill her, but she goes toe to toe with him for a minute.
She gives him a good run. Yeah. This weapon produces an overwhelmingly powerful blast, but it has a limited functionality, because after a few shots, it literally melts the lightsaber that's fueling it. There is a self-destruct mode, which apparently was big enough to blow a hole in the temple. So the lightsaber rifle. That is a quick rundown, I might add, of all of the lightsaber variants in the new canon. I did not list the dark saber as its own thing because again, we know so little about it,
There's so much
Right.
more to come out for it.
and it's essentially a broad saber.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll learn some more about them.
I think we will in season 3.
Yeah. One thing about lightsabers specifically is that, I mean, through all of the media that we've seen over the years, is we've seen lightsabers do some very interesting things, or we've had these amazing cinematic moments that use them. I asked you guys earlier in the week if you all had a favorite lightsaber moment, and you guys delivered. Let's talk about our favorite lightsaber moments here. I guess we'll start with mine. My favorite lightsaber moment. This one comes right at, this is like the reason I picked this one as a role-playing gamer guy.
Mhm.
This is stuff that we were doing, before we ever saw it on screen. Like there's a joke in the role-playing community we call the lightsaber the UCT, the universal cutting tool.
Yeah.
And the idea of like cutting through a door, it was old hat by the time we saw it on screen. But when we got to it in the Phantom Menace and Qui-Gon Jinn plunges his lightsaber into that door on the Trade Federation battleship, my mind was blown. And I wanted to see it through. I wanted to see him turn the whole thing to slag. You're going through. They didn't deliver on that, but the visual, what we did get was enough, like, oh yeah, given enough time, the lightsaber will go through just about anything. And
Right.
God, I
and
love
finally
this moment.
answering the question: do they generate heat?
Yes. Facebook comment, yes, one of my favorite lightsaber moments too. Yeah, I love this one. Andy, what's your favorite lightsaber moment, my friend?
My favorite also came from the Phantom Menace, and it was that moment right there when Darth Maul ignited that second blade.
Oh my God.
Because he ignites the first one, it's like, okay, we're going to get a duel. But then the second blade comes out, and it's like, oh my God.
I remember seeing a thing with Ray Park. Ray Park was talking sort of a behind the scenes thing about giving him the double-bladed lightsaber. And I guess earlier on in the production, they were going to give him the same size handle like the XR Kun, the Legends character. That's where the first double-bladed lightsaber appeared in the comic books. And Ray Park said, I love the idea, but can we make the handle a bit longer so I can use it two-handed like a staff? So Ray Park had a hand in developing that. Yeah.
Nice.
That's an awesome moment too, especially when I went back and I screen capped the images for it, and that's those opening bars of Duel of the Fates when it's dun, 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 dun,
Yep.
and you're like, oh yeah, this is still so good to watch.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
Comment, lightsabers can melt doors, but we never see them ignite clothing, despite basically everyone wearing robes and loose clothing.
Well,
no, but we
we've seen
do
that
see
in Obi-Wan now.
I was going to say we've seen singeing and holes, I guess. Even Mando's cloak, takes a bit of his pants when he drops the dark saber on his leg.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he wears a lot of polyester.
Maybe.
It's possible.
Maybe everything is made of polyester in the Star Wars universe.
It's a good bet. No zippers.
All right, Hank. Favorite lightsaber moment, sir? What do you got?
The moment Luke uses the Force to, I guess, finally connect with the lightsaber. It always intrigued me. It's not the most amazing lightsaber moment. It certainly doesn't have the gravitas of the Darth Maul, but for me, it's just realizing that a Jedi could do that with the Force, realizing how quickly he could utilize it for multiple things. He frees himself. He wounds the Wampa and he escapes using it as a light out of the cave. For me, that's my favorite lightsaber sort of moment. I guess it's number one, but then we could go on through 2 through 99, and I could go on all day.
I tell you,
the first one where I went, oh man, that's something I can't do.
There are so many cool moments. And again, how do you distinguish or differentiate what's a cool lightsaber moment versus what's a cool lightsaber moment that is also a Force using thing? Like, sometimes they're really hard to separate.
Right.
For me, I can think of a couple in the books.
It was sort of the connection between the user and the weapon as they became one in the scene. Yeah.
I love the fact that, up until this point, we've seen a lightsaber dismember one living thing that was Ponda Baba in the cantina on Tatooine.
Right.
The second time we see it in action, it kills Ben Kenobi. Now we're seeing Luke use it literally to save his own life.
Right.
In chopping off the Wampa's arm. I think it's it's.
I
Well
think
done.
an honorable
He's lucky.
mention for me would have to be Han Solo using it right after this.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
open up
As a
that
tool.
tauntaun
As a tool. There you go. There it is. The
Yeah.
UCT, the Universal Cutting Tool.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Luke's lucky he didn't cut his feet off.
Yeah. Really, he sawed his own. I mean, you see how much ice is around his boots.
Yeah,
That's another thing. I mean, I got to go back and maybe read the
There's that.
novelization. How did the Wampa get his feet in there? He just packed snow around it and then
Breathe
like
on him or
do
something.
the old until it turned to ice.
It could be.
It's not really ice; it's just Wampa spit.
There's a couple cool
Maybe
moments in the
Wampa
novels.
piss.
There's a scene in I don't know if it's the Dark Force Rising or The Last Command where Luke Skywalker is in a round room surrounded by a bunch of Nogri assassins,
Mhm.
and they're hiding behind long tapestries in the room, but Luke can sense them with the Force,
Yeah.
and he does like the
Love
ultimate
this
video
moment.
game moment where he literally throws his lightsaber, spinning, whoa, 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 and with the Force spins it around the room, cuts
Whole
through
room.
all the tapestries, and kills all the assassins in one
Yes.
swoop. Same trilogy. Oh, maybe it's not the same trilogy. Another book. He does the Errol Flynn down a building with his lightsaber, like
Right.
sliding down the sail. Dun, 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 dun,
Right.
dun, 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 dun.
We see Ahsoka do that in the Clone Wars, the final season.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, super cool moments with the lightsabers. That yeah, those are our favorite ones, though. All right, so this was kind of. I mean, we're all fans of lightsabers. I own a lightsaber. You've got your.
I've got
I was gonna say you've got
my
your
camera flash,
your flash handle.
and my son, he's got a couple of them, but
I have.
I don't have any collectible ones.
I bought many years ago. I bought the first release Force FX, not the Master Replicas one, Master Replicas, the Hasbro Force FX Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber, which I absolutely love. I still have it. I was playing with it yesterday, actually. There's another one coming out, but there's another comment coming in here. Favorite lightsaber moment: the Inquisitor's flying. Yes, absolutely. How can you not like that?
Yeah, it's pretty great. I
Which
wish
apparently
we
was-
got that live action.
Oh, so do I, to be honest with you.
Season 2.
Hank, you and your wife have a
Mm,
small collection of lightsabers.
We do. Yeah.
I took the liberty of throwing together a slide here that's gonna show off. Here's a bunch of third party, well, I should say first party and third.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a lightsaber of your very own, and you were contemplating getting into lightsaber collecting or even lightsaber dueling, there are several companies that you can go and check out, from Hasbro, which, by the way, Hasbro is the official. So they're the only ones that you will see the full term lightsaber used. It is a trademark term. Everybody else, it'll just be saber, because saber is so generic.
Light blade.
Yeah, and you'll get them at all different price points too. Like
Mhm.
a couple of these companies are entry level, like starting at under $100, and some of them go all the way up 600 plus, depending on what you want to get into. But we're
Oh, that's true.
talking, super impact resistant polycarbonate blades, full RGB boards that can do, as you say, how many colors? And
16 million.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Soundboards. I mean, you can buy pretty much anything you can dream of.
Mhm.
Saberforge actually is maybe one of the bigger leaders in that community, where at one time in my retail business, I reached out to them to see what it would be like, because they have a program where they do like their own version of the blade builders.
Nice.
But as a retailer, the buy-in was I had to buy enough parts for 10 sabers, which was about $5,000 US.
Ooh.
So I just could not do it at the time. But yeah, they make some really great stuff. Tell me about what you've got going on over there.
So we have 3 Hasbro sabers.
Yeah.
Lauren loves first of all, she loves the Dooku saber. It might have even been her comment. It's her favorite saber, but she also loves dual wielding. And since
Right.
Asajj Ventress's sabers are loosely modeled after Dooku's, and she is
Yeah.
dual wielding, it's perfect. So we actually went out and we bought 2 Asajj Ventress lightsabers. We've had them out of the box.
Have you put them together?
We haven't actually had them out of the box at the same time to put them together.
Oh,
But so yeah, Lauren wants to finish her cosplay costume before we actually
right.
turn them on and
No, I want them to.
yeah, and we're hoping to have some nice displays. I also have half of Maul's saber, which is a Hasbro.
Yeah.
Force Effects. I don't have any batteries in it right now, and it's the same with the Asajj. It's the not polycarbonate blade, and I think this guy has a pixel out. But then we were watching all these videos. Sorry, I keep popping in and out of first.
No, it's good.
And we were looking at these Kombat Sabers. Both these sabers here are from Rebel Sabers. I see you got their logo, and they're great. Their customer service was amazing. I can't say enough about them. These were both manufactured in China and shipped here real quick.
Cool.
The polycarbonate, I mean, we literally smashed them off of one another full speed.
Nice.
It's a great way to end an argument. The sound, the color, nice. That's a good comment. That's good to know. This pair was about $250 American for the pair.
Oh, that's a good price.
They also link to become.
They do.
They do, so you can just take off the little dowel.
Very nice.
Hers goes right on to this one.
I can hear, and I'm sure the listeners can hear that as well. Those are machined aluminum?
Beautiful. Yeah, they're tooled. I mean, I don't know how close we can get in here, but they are. We went for the sort of matte gray finish.
Yeah. Almost like
they
a
have
gunmetal.
Silver and a black. It's very gunmetal. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it looks
stuff.
really nice.
And
I'm just gonna say something. They are easily modifiable.
Nice.
When you move it around, it does have some good action with the sound changing. However, smashing them off of things, they don't make the sound like you'd want them to.
When you're
hitting
blade
them
clash.
Off each other, you have to hit them in a very specific spot.
Oh, really?
Hit them
Okay.
really, really hard.
Really
for them
hard.
to make the crashing
Right,
sound.
right,
But
right.
other than that, they're really, really good for $120 blade.
yeah.
That
Lauren
sounds
actually
fantastic.
cut about 3 inches off of hers to make it 4 inches off of hers, and was able the actual cut carbon so that now she can spin it without hitting the ceiling and the floor.
Oh, nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
Obi all day long.
Nice.
I mean, I was super impressed. There's a video out there. It's a viral video you can watch of a guy with a katana and a guy with one of the polycarbonate blades. I can't say that it's exactly a Rebel Sabers blade, but this thing takes 2 full speed swipes from a katana.
Before it breaks.
Right. So,
wow.
I mean, you're going to get everything you need out of this. It's probably more sturdy than a wooden boken, like a practice sort of samurai or ninja sword. And, 16 million colors in these ones, although you got to be patient to try to find your perfect color. 5 or 6 sound iterations, so you get the different sound sabers from classic characters. These ones were Cal Kestis and Leia's saber, Rey's new sabers on these boards. But what we looked into and what we might go with the new direction is that you can buy the boards, you can buy the saber bits and parts, and you can also so you can actually build a saber cheaper than you can buying one of theirs.
Buy it whole. Interesting.
And also, all of these companies also make a version, like a high quality version of your legacy sabers, although they're called quirky names to avoid problems.
So they don't. Yeah, exactly. So all of the named character blades exist from these other companies.
And like the one that's making me drool right now, like I said before, is the Rebel Sabers has it's called the Apprentice 2-pack, and it's Kanon Saber and Ezra's Saber for $720 US.
This isn't a Rebel Sabers ad, though. I am actually going to be purchasing my next saber off of Master Allen and his shop. What is that one called? He has his own thing, and he's up here in Canada. And he
Oh,
has
that's good to know.
a site as well. It's
Because
called
I don't
Level
think-
Up Sabers.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and
I think
they're all
any of the
relatively decently priced, and they have an Ezra Saber for cheaper.
all of the
That's
all
where
of
I'm getting
the
mine as well.
all of the
So they're all over the
retailers
place.
that are
Test them
on the
out.
slide, I believe most of them, if not all of them, are out of the United States. And
Yeah.
there are the description of this video, you'll find links to all of those shops in this video. So if you're interested in going and checking any of those out, and maybe we can get the link to that other one here in Canada, and we'll get that added as well.
Yeah, totally. I'll post that.
If you're going to go all the way and you're going to get a Saber, now the question is, are you just hanging out in the living room? I mean, I don't want to say you're beating your wife, but you two are like, you guys are having fun. You're dueling. What do? Do you take it to the next level? Do you look for a league?
So we both
Because-
thought about this. There's actually there's a kendo school here.
Sure.
And they actually like real sword fighting.
Yeah.
Real kendo blades, but holy cow, would those skills transfer over into some lightsaber action? I don't see kids walking in and out of there with lightsabers, but I absolutely know that it wouldn't be a stretch to ask if we could incorporate that into that. And that kendo has one governing body worldwide. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Okay.
sort of
That's cool.
So we were thinking about that, just to even kick the can. There used to be a lightsaber school in Halifax when Disney did the big crackdown.
Okay.
I know that they put the nix on that, and it hasn't really resurfaced yet. But there are schools, especially all over YouTube, that teach actual sort of sword stuff. You know, aim for the body, not for the other sword, and actually make it look. And then while we haven't done it, we talk all the time about let's choreograph a really cool thing, and then perfect it, and then film it, and
it would look awesome.
It would just look awesome.
Oh, we were doing stuff like that in the backyard with the old Hasbro, the plastic ones, and man, a couple of good blows, and next thing, I need a new lightsaber.
Yeah, they did. They shattered. But like, absolutely, it's a logical sort of, and I mean, physical fitness, just sheer fun. A lot of these schools, I see the YouTube videos, everybody's dressing up in full gear.
Well, that's the thing.
There's Padawans, there's masters, there's, so it's hella cool.
There's an international organization. You guys have heard of the 501st Legion, the big cosplay organization?
Absolutely.
There is an international saber dueling organization. They are called the Saber Legion, and they have chapters in the United States, Canada, and the UK.
Excellent.
And it looks like they have right now a little over 18,000 members, arguably making them one of the biggest, if not the most successful organized saber fighting league in the world. I had a look at their membership requirements, and they actually have a very very formalized set of rules for how they fight. And they are they tout themselves as the mixed martial arts of lightsaber combat. Nice. Essentially, where there is no ascribed sword school. It's basically you as a practitioner of kendo could, meet somebody who's a practitioner of aikido, and that's okay. But it's all about this sort of shared interest in Star Wars, particularly lightsaber combat.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing.
You do not have to own a lightsaber for membership, but you do have to jump through a few hoops, like joining their Facebook group, joining their Facebook page, sign the no harm agreement, and send that in. But man, they have an upcoming, actually they have a tournament coming up here this month. If you are in the Las Vegas area over the weekend of July 21st and 24th at the Flamingo Hotel, you will see COMBATCON. COMBATCON is a celebration of martial arts in popular culture, including Star Wars, where the Saber Legion will be having their first formal tournament in a couple of years because of COVID. So
amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, what better way to sort of wrap up our show than to bring it full circle? And man, if you want to get into lightsaber combat, again, there are multiple ways to do it. And like I said, I encourage you, go check out some of the links in the description of this video. Of course, that's on our YouTube channel. That's the Fandom Power Podcast on YouTube. where you can find links to all of that stuff. You'll also find a link to all of our other videos, as well as our Patreon. Do consider becoming a patron of the show, because we'd love to have you on board as part of the production team, where you can help steer the show. Man, as we wrap this one up, I don't even know where we're going next week. we haven't talked about next week, but yeah, glad to be back. We had a little bit of a break there, and man, this is the kind of thing. This is actually a show that actually came out of a comment from one of our previous shows. So
Sure.
you can very much steer the show by telling us what you want to see us do. We're happy to put this stuff together. And man, did you guys have a good time on this one?
I learned a lot.
We could have spent a lot more time talking about lightsabers, and probably will in future shows as we see weird things happening. But man, what a cool way to go back and just sort of revisit lightsabers and how they've evolved from.
Hopefully that
Simple
answered
laser sword.
whoever's question from last week, I guess. Hopefully we got whatever they were specifically wondering about. Hopefully we nailed it.
I hope so. I did tag him in our social media this week to let him know that this one is for you, Rob. So thank you for the comment and for the suggestion. It was a great show. I very much enjoyed it. But that's all for me, guys. I got nothing else for you. So you guys got anything else?
No, that was great.
It was a lot of fun.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Do like and subscribe.
It's free and it helps out a ton.
It does. We just picked up another subscriber today, actually.
Nice.
Anyway, that's it for me. And what's that, Hank?
Oh, we are slowly growing. It's
we are,
fantastic.
We absolutely are. Yeah. So always happy to see that. And listen, for all of we got seven consistently watching tonight. So thank you for sticking with us for the last hour and a half. We definitely love having you along for the ride. And until next time, guys, and there will be a next time, because man, I love what we do here. So and until the next video, my name is Wes.
Andy.
I'm Hank.
We'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye for now.